Good evening and welcome to the North Idaho College Board of Trustees meeting. Today is February 23rd, 2022. I appreciate everybody being here tonight. Mr. Lyons, would you please confirm that we have a quorum, please?
We do have a quorum, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, sir. Would everybody join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you for joining me in that. I am told that we do not have any public comment tonight. Nobody signed up. Next on the agenda would be the President's report.
Good evening, Chair Banducci, trustees, guests. All of our constituent leaders agreed to put their reports in writing this month when we initially thought the trustee candidate interviews would be tonight, anticipating a very long evening. After our special board meeting last week, I offered the chance for our constituent leaders to return with the reports in person, but we have some very involved and busy members across our community that are participating in other NIC endeavors tonight. Tonight, Cyrus, our ASNIC president, is at night at the library, an evening for students to engage in tutoring and other supports. And Jeff Carr is at a rehearsal for a Midsummer Night's Dream that will be performed at NIC on April 14th through the 16th and the 21st through the 23rd, a performance for us all to look forward to. Last month, we were asked to review the communicable disease policy. Ken Wardinski took the lead on that for us, and we reviewed revisions in President's Cabinet yesterday. This policy is now being taken to Panhandle Health District by Laura Rumpler for review. If Panhandle Health District approves it, Alex Harris will take the revised policy to Senate, and if approved, we'll bring it back to the board for consideration. I'd like to thank the board for their support last month of the 2-week pivot that the college did to remote learning to reduce the spread of COVID during the Omicron spike in our region. For the last 5 days, we have averaged 11 combined between faculty and students and staff in quarantine, which is significantly lower than the 70+ in quarantine we had a month ago. We also have reopened the Children's Center to full capacity. The President's Advisory Committee leadership did their best to ensure minimal disruption for our students and employees while ensuring the health and welfare of the campus community. The leadership of NIC is in good hands because of the strong relationship that our deans and President's Cabinet members have across campus. While COVID is still in our community, our campus has shown resilience again. Shortly after our last meeting, Chair Banducci and Trustee McKenzie joined Sarah Garcia, Laura Rumpler, and I for Higher Education Week at the State Legislature. The Joint Finance and Appropriations Committee's presentation and the House and Senate Education Committee presentations were well received, and legislators showed great support of NIC and the work that we do. We were able to meet with the governor's office, leadership at the State Board of Ed, and nearly all of our legislators from the north. I will return to Boise next week for the setting of the community college budgets by the Joint Finance and Appropriation Committee. I plan to meet with several legislators and also State Board of Ed officials. Earlier this month, we had TJ Bliss, the Chief Academic Officer for the State Board of Ed, on campus, and he got the opportunity to meet with many individuals on topics that they are working on in conjunction with the State Board of Ed. The dean searches are moving forward. Finalists for the Dean of General Studies will be on NIC's main campus meeting with stakeholders and participating in open forums on March 7th, 14th, and 15th. Finalists for the Dean of Enrollment Services will follow the same process, visiting NIC on March 8th, 9th, and 10th. In the Nick Now today, there was also information put out about the presidential search forms, and those are March 1st and March 2nd, and they're at 4 different times. I want to thank the board for considering a consent agenda tonight. This tool will allow the board to move meetings quickly on items that are routine, informational, and self-explanatory versus items requiring question and answers and discussion. This change is an effort for meetings to be more productive and efficient. At any time, a trustee may ask to pull an item off the consent agenda for further discussion, and that is appropriate. Lastly, a status update on the NWCCU's evaluation process. Late last Friday, NIC received a communication from the NWCCU Rather than responding to the corrections to errors of facts that Dr. Kurtz and I provided after we were able to review the draft peer evaluation report, the NWCCU has chosen a different step in their process of evaluating NIC. The NWCCU has extended an invitation for Dr. Kurtz and I to meet with its executive board in a virtual meeting format. The meeting date has not been set, but I anticipate that it will be quickly. Dr. Kurtz and I have been asked to provide the executive board of the NWCCU with information of the complaint with information of our views on what led to the complaint that led to the visit, our considerations on the peer evaluation panel's draft report, and any updates at North Idaho College since the panel's visit in January. Many have asked when the draft report or additional details will be released. The draft report remains a working document of the NWCCU and is still confidential. Dr. Kurtz and I were given the opportunity to view it and only comment on errors of fact. Please remember that the college is not able to share information nor respond publicly until the Commission has met and provided NIC with a letter of action. I am in gratitude for all of the very busy professionals who are taking the time to see what has truly gone on here and what is happening at NIC. I'm thankful for the service our interim team is showing while providing voice to others and empowering this college to keep going. The goal of accreditation is always to improve and move the institution forward, and many have stepped up into important roles to continue the work of this college. So I respectfully remind everyone that while the complaint of the NWCCU is evaluating started about the board, it is not all about the board anymore, but also about the impact of what's happening to our college and those who remain in service to our students and our students. And what remains is a dedicated group of individuals. I appreciate everyone's patience and will continue to share out information on the NWCCU's inquiry as I can. Thank you.
Are there any questions or comments for Dr. Sabali? Trustee Wood.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Dr. Savali, if you would just expand a little more on the Children's Center. When did it become fully operational, and what exactly does that mean to our students that are utilizing that for their children?
Alex, do you know, can you help me out on the exact date that it went? Thank you. Dean Harris will provide the exact date on that.
It's good to have good help.
Chair Banducci, Trustee Wood. We originally, when we came to face a staffing crisis and had a number of children out, we put I think it was an 11-day pause when you added the weekends into that, and we're able to come back fully staffed after that, and our classrooms are operating at full capacity.
And do you know that everyone that has used the center before understands that? Has there been some communication that's been sent out?
Parents that had children in there when we did shut down, yeah, I do know that our Children's Center Director, Jolie, had reached out to all the parents who utilize the center, so.
Okay. And it's hard to predict what could happen with COVID, but do you anticipate any other shutdowns?
Again, given the caveat that it's hard to predict what will happen, just like we were discussing today, predicting what would be going on when commencement comes around. But the numbers that we're receiving from Panhandle Health and the CDC, it looks like we continue to be on the decline. So we were at our worst when we asked for the pause at the Children's Center and changing in the delivery of classes. So do I anticipate that happening again? I don't think so, but we're ready to respond should those things happen.
All right. Thank you so much.
Any other questions or comments for Dr. Sabali? I have one. I think, if I understand, we had a visit with Chief Allen, which might have been the first time that happened in quite some time. Do you have anything you could share about that meeting with the tribe?
So Dr. Silvas and I went up there like 2-3 weeks ago now, and we met with Dr. Meyer and Chief Allen, and they had their entire education staff there and gave us reports on their Head Start, their pre-K, their kindergarten, the different grade levels, their GED. We got a great amount of information. I actually know that Dean Harris, he just walked out today, and there's 45 Coeur d'Alene tribe members attending NIC this semester, which is the most that we've had in quite some time. So it was a nice meeting to get out there and meet them and just build our relationship.
Dr. Solis, do you have anything to add from your perspective?
Thank you, Chair.
I saw you smiling, so I thought.
Trustees. It was very welcoming. We also got a tour of their Boys and Girls Club, which was amazing facility with an indoor water park and just a pool and a basketball court. They're building a football field. They're really focusing attention on the emotional and physical health of their community, and it was a wonderful opportunity to get a private tour by Jaime, one of their council members there. So yeah, we really enjoyed the visit. It was well worth going out and spending a few hours with them.
Oh,
Thank you.
That sounds great.
Last week at the State Board of Ed meeting, Dr. Silvas was also appointed North Idaho College's representative on the Idaho Indian Education Committee, and she will be down in Boise next Wednesday through Friday for a retreat on that.
Did you have something else to add to that?
She was going to check the dates on it.
Well, congratulations on that. That's quite an honor. Secondly, it sounds like a great visit. And third, maybe a lot of fun. Maybe I'd like to be invited on the next trip to see that water park or something. Sounds pretty great. All right. Thank you for your report, Dr. Sabali. Dr. Silvas. All right. The next thing on the agenda is the consent agenda, excuse me. And again, if any trustees want to take any of these 5 items and for any discussion, happy to do that. I'll give everybody a moment. If nobody wants to pull any of these 5 things off individually for discussion, then I would ask if someone would make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Okay, thank you, sir.
I'll second that.
Thank you. All right, I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
No, there's no discussion
Oh,
on the
that's
consent
right.
agenda.
I stand corrected, sorry. I'm so used to doing that. On that note, all those in favor of approval of the consent agenda, please say aye.
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 It carries. Thank you very much. Motion passes. Next, we have new business. Under that, we have tab 5. It's a first reading action item titled Revised Stewardship of College Assets Policy 2.03.02. And Sarah Garcia will talk to us about that. Thank you, Sarah.
Good evening, Chair Banducci, trustees. I am here presenting just for the first reading, the revised policy on the stewardship of college assets. There are not significant changes to the policy other than to create additional clarification, to create a more comprehensive outline of the steps involved in the pieces that are taken into consideration during the stewardship process. So I will stand for any comments or questions that you may have.
Questions or comments for Sarah, please? Ken? Oh, okay. Christie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I did have an opportunity to share some of my comments with Dr. Sabali, who passed them on, but I'm going to go ahead and mention them here as well.
Please.
In the policy, there's just one sentence that talks about removing the guidance of the Board of Trustees and the college president. And my position on that is, by definition, of college assets are in the purview of board governance of the institution, and the president is charged with carrying out our directives. So I don't want to remove that sentence, if at all possible.
I'm,
Trustee McKenzie, you have a comment, sir?
just for ask for clarification on where that sentence is. We are talking about 2.03.02.
It's at the very top of the very first paragraph, right under the words policy narrative. It says North Idaho College, and then it starts to go there, and you'll see some red, and it's what's lined out and has been replaced, or it's just been lined out, I guess, actually, not technically replaced. Are you able to see it, sir?
I do see it now, thank you.
Okay. Trustee Wood, if I may ask, if it said the North Idaho College Office of Finance and Business, comma, we left that under the guidance of the Board of Trustees and the college president, comma, in accordance with college policy shall develop, would that be a satisfactory amendment?
Yeah.
Okay. Any, Trustee Howard or Trustee McKenzie, any thoughts or comments on that?
I would agree with that change.
Okay.
I mean, we're not voting on it, this is just a discussion.
No, but for them to be, get our feedback for the second reading. Trustee McKenzie, you, any thoughts down there, sir? I would also agree with that change. I'll just wade in at this time. Trustee Howard.
I guess, while on the face of it, I agree with that change. I guess, do you have any explanation as to why that was taken out?
Thank you, Trustee Howard, Chair Banducci, Trustee Howard. Thank you for the question. No, it's an attempt at clarification because essentially in accordance with college policy, because the board is in charge of college policy, it's almost a restatement of the fact college policy is the Board of Trustees. So, and as part of college policy, the trustees have delegated the authority for operational guidelines to the administration. So that was the reasoning behind the change.
Chair Banducci, if I may.
Trustee McKenzie.
That, along those lines is what I was thinking. I would say, under the guidance of the Board of Trustees and the college president, to me, when I read both of those, it's kind of like we both could say it. I would say we want, under the guidance of the college president, if you really want the Board of Trustees involved, you could say something that we have, that the Board of Trustees is able to review it in accordance with college policy. But I think it would be, in this scenario, I actually like the Board of Trustees being involved in a lot of things, but in this scenario, I do feel it would be redundant. Just my initial thoughts.
If I may, one thought on that. Since this is a policy, and we're saying in accordance with the college policy, I almost think that the in accordance with the college policy is more the redundant, and under the guidance of the Board of Trustees and college president makes sense because we're codifying that within the policy. So I don't know. Are we hurting anything either way here?
I hear what you're saying, and we can go back and take a look at the policy.
I think that's a pretty small thing.
Yeah.
Is there anything else? Let me ask this question of the other three trustees. And not to minimize this question here, but under the 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, is there anything under there substantive that anybody has a concern or a question or an issue on? Anything to ask Sarah, you know, what the thought process was behind any of those?
No.
My only question would be the manual that we're referencing, is that reviewed on a annual, biannual, triannual type schedule, periodic?
We do not have a set schedule by which we review the operational, let me get the name right, operational services, administrative services, operational guidelines.
It's a mouthful.
It is a mouthful. But essentially we adjust them as we see fit, as state law changes, as processes change, or as regulations change. We make those changes in the guidelines so that they're always up to date for employees to reference. So for instance, in the case of an asset, there's guidelines on what you need to do if you have an asset you need disposed of. So we have a truck that is not working anymore. How do I get rid of it? What happens to it? And there's a process in the manual that explains how they go about doing that.
Okay, so it's updated on an as-needed basis periodically.
Yes.
Okay, very good. Mr. Chair. Trustee Howard.
Normally, there's some kind of procedure that goes along with a policy. Is there a procedure for this policy?
There is not a specific procedure that is attached to this policy. It is essentially the administrative services guidelines as a whole.
Okay.
That's a great question.
Yeah,
'Cause usually we do have those.
the one of the reasons why I asked is when they say under the guidance of the existing policy is under the guidance of the Board of Trustees and the college president. There's got to be a procedure for guiding or for being involved in that process. And if we don't have a procedure, it seems like it might be difficult to follow the policy. So I guess I'd like your thoughts on if there isn't an existing procedure, how is the present policy carried out?
You'll have to excuse me. This is my first policy, so I'm working on answering that to the best of my ability. Is that the stewardship of college assets is so broad that it cannot be covered in a procedure. That's why we have the administrative services operational guidelines, and it covers purchasing and assets and all the different ways that we steward college assets. I do believe when we first created that guideline, we shared it with the board, and it is online and it's always available, but we don't have a policy because it covers a myriad of different types of activities.
So Sarah, we're happy to show lots of grace, by the way.
I appreciate that.
Everybody.
Thank you.
And Ken, you know, that answer, maybe we would consider the manual itself to be kind of the procedure.
Well, I guess my concern is if the board is going to retain the responsibility to provide guidance, then we got to have some way of doing that. And just simply to say that we have the duty to provide guidance doesn't really help me anyway. And I need if what we have to do as trustees then is read the manual and then what? So it'd be nice to have some kind of an idea of how we fulfill our obligation that we've undertaken here. Either that or don't undertake it, which is what your suggestion was with this policy in the first place.
I think, sorry, excuse me.
No, that's right. So I'm trying to understand, you know, how we get through this and how it becomes a logical and reasonable undertaking for the board.
Chair Banducci, Trustee Howard, that's kind of my struggle as well with under this being under the guidance of the board. Every time I change the administrative guidelines because of a federal regulation or state change or mileage rate change for the IRS, do I need to bring it to the board for guidance? So this kind of takes it out of that operational level and says, you know, I'm operating under stewardship as directed by you guys, and we would be cautious with that. I could write up a procedure of how we go about changing the guidelines. I could look at doing that if that would give you more comfort.
Chair Banducci,
Dr. Sabali.
the practices this policy describes are in fact the procedures.
Okay.
Well, Mr. Chair.
Trustee Howard, please.
I'm not sure that, I mean, I think what you're describing for me is to do a procedure on this particular policy would be very cumbersome in order to do a reasonable procedure that can be developed for the board's involvement.
Yes, sir.
So, and the change that you're proposing, taking the board out of the guidance category, would be simply to do what you've been doing all along, right? You haven't come to the board for any particular guidance, not you, but I mean, under this policy, I don't remember ever having anybody come to us with regard to a specific item under this policy. It's been under the general policies that we have in our manual. And the more we discuss this, the more I'm starting to think that what we've been doing is using the policy manual and the procedure manual as the way we get involved in the guidance. Correct me if I'm wrong in my.
It seems,
Chair,
oh, I'm sorry, it seems like the one time we would have been consulted is like when we've acquired property, which partly under this, because we've acquired some of the properties over here on Military Drive. So that'd be one time under this policy, but
Chair Banducci, Trustee Howard, because of the wide range of activities that get covered under this, we do refer to other board policies with regard to those individual activities that we may need to consult with you on. And we follow those board policies as we develop the guidelines because, again, because it is such a broad range of topics. So again, we don't sign a lease. The board signs leases. We do not buy property. The board authorizes us to buy property. There are certain things that we can, in policy, we cannot do without the board's approval. But if it comes to, you know, can I sell this table or donate this table to School District 371? Is that something I need to ask the board?
Chair Banducci. Ken, do you mind?
No.
Okay. Trustee McKenzie.
Just going off Trustee Howard's line of thinking, it seems like a lot of the guidance and inputs comes from state and federal laws, and this policy is having the college follow those. And then if we, and our input essentially comes from policies that you reference in accordance with college policies and others. So just to continue the line of thinking, it seems like a lot of the guidance and inputs, this policy is just to ensure that NIC follows state and federal laws, just like it says. So.
All right, I'm going to try to do something here just for the sake of clarity. We've had kind of a little bit of a push-pull of whether we want that one sentence to remain or not. I guess I'm interested to, if we have a strong sense one way or the other amongst the 4 board members. And Sarah, I guess I'll give you the last word before I kind of pull the group real quick so we can give you some clear feedback, hopefully. Because right now I think we've kind of given it to you both ways. So if I were you, I wasn't sure where to go in this one. Give me a case, if you will, pro or con to how you'd like that first sentence to read and just your quick bottom line why.
Chair Banducci, thank you. My quick bottom line would be, I would prefer to have it the way it's been proposed in the policy, which does strike this specific language about the board and the president, because the reference to in accordance with college policy by default is looking at the board and the guidance the board has provided to the college from a policy level.
Do you see it reducing our oversight that we're tasked with, our ability to do that, our responsibility to do that as fiduciaries? Is there anything that's compromised there?
I do not believe so.
Okay. Trustee Wood, what
I
thoughts
think
that you might have?
I think she's explained it very well. The concern was, would we compromise our oversight? And it doesn't appear that we will.
Okay.
So I'm fine with them striking the sentence.
Trustee Howard?
Yeah, I mean, the more I look at this, the more I see how cumbersome it would be if we tried to guide these elements that are described, ensuring compliance with state and federal laws, for instance, or ensuring stewardship of all funds. Those things that we want done, but we entrust the policies that we have established to do that. So striking the under guidance of the Board of Trustees and college president makes sense to me.
Okay. Trustee McKenzie?
I'm happy.
All right, so I believe we have a consensus. I hopefully speak for the board. I think we like how you have it. And at this time, there's no feedback for changes for the second read. I will. Obviously, any of the trustees, should they, upon further reflection, have any other thoughts on this, they're certainly free to share them with you. And maybe share that with the rest of us, if you provide input to Sarah just for, as a courtesy. But at this time, it looks like we'll move forward as it's written.
Thank you very much.
You bet. Thank you. Tab 6, first reading action, revised professional consulting policy 3.02.12. Karen Hubbard.
Good evening, Chair Banducci, trustees. As part of our ongoing review of our policies and specifically our employment policies, many are up for review this year and next. I'm presenting 2 policies tonight for a first reading. Both policies have been reviewed by the HR team, President's Cabinet, and gone through 2 readings at the Senate before being approved to bring forward to you tonight. The first policy is 3.02.12 on external employment and professional consulting. And if you have any questions on that policy, I'd be happy to take those.
Karen, what I'd like to do, and I probably was remiss to do this initially with Sarah, is I'm looking at the red lines here and everything. Is there anything in particular that you'd like to point out to us, or any of the thought process, or anything you'd like to share with us as to the rationale behind this? Just let you get out in front of it, I guess.
Primarily, we're just looking to update the language. We're not changing significantly processes or practices that have been in place in recent years. So I don't think that there's anything substantial in my view.
Okay, that's why I just want to give you the opportunity if there's anything particular that you thought you want to know.
Thank you.
Oh wait, trustees, questions or comments on this for Karen? Trustee McKenzie.
Chair Banducci, thank you. In the new section B, consulting performed for NIC, it does have, whenever possible, NIC will look to the expertise of its own employees first, comma, then new, providing it will not impair in quality or quantity the performance of the employees' regularly assigned duties. Just for conversation, I do believe it would be wise to put a caveat in there when it comes to drawing redistricting boundaries. I believe there's a time, not this most recent one, but maybe the one before, that there was an NIC employee who drew those redistricting boundaries. And I just believe that it's best to outsource that one thing.
Okay. Which was done this last process. Any other comments or questions?
Mr. Chair,
Trustee Wood.
I'm bouncing back and forth.
No, you're fine. We got time here.
I did have some comments for Karen that I provided in advance, and it was really on making sure there was a sentence in here about using vacation and personal leave. And I just wanted to clarify that vacation is approved by a supervisor. That's all.
Are we looking at number 2 at the top of page 2?
Let's see, I have to find my note.
There says there employees must use accrued vacation or personal
Yes.
days for absences related to private consulting work.
Yeah, that's correct. And it struck out that they would receive appropriate approval from a vice president. And I just want, just on the vacation itself, not on the actual consulting, but on the vacation. And if that's addressed in another policy, that's fine. But I just think supervisors should sign off on vacation leave.
Karen, please.
That would be consistent with our practice in terms of supervisor approval for vacation time. I wouldn't object at all to specifying in that in here. I think it was assumed.
Okay.
Other questions or comments? Is it? Okay, so we have that input from Christie, from Trustee Wood. And you don't think that'd be a problem to add that little caveat to the end of number 2 there? Just for clarification.
That's correct. I wouldn't have a problem with that.
Okay, and then Trustee McKenzie did mention the one potential caveat just on maybe outsourcing, just to avoid any complaints, I guess, or I don't know, on the one thing that has a little bit of a political connotation to it for the redrawing of districts, which we don't do on very often. So it's kind of a small point, but would that be easy to submit into there too?
Chair Banducci, Trustee McKenzie, my thoughts on that are that it would likely be covered under our conflict of interest policy. And I think that's really what the concern is with that, with the example that you provided.
Well, that,
We could certainly reference that. I don't have that handy right now. It actually is also, I believe, on the list for review this year. You know, another option would be to add a phrase that speaks to conflict of interest. Not sure that it's necessary, given that it's covered under another policy. If it is, you know, clearly covered, but if we wanted to ensure that that was taken into consideration, we could add a phrase here.
Karen, maybe consider that, yeah, maybe just something there, and it can even be something that just references the other policy that says, you know, conflict of interest, see this for cross, I don't know.
Sure.
Pricing, cross-check, something. I'll leave that to your proper wording. Is that making sense though?
It does, yes, thank you.
I don't know, I wasn't very articulate there. Okay. Other questions or comments for Karen on the first policy, 3.02.12?
Chair Banducci,
Trustee McKenzie.
just for point of clarification, just to provide clear guidance from Trustee Woods, the first input about number 2, so currently as it's proposed right now by you, the process would include the first level supervisor and then also a VP because it's related to private consulting work. Is that how I understand it?
Trustee McKenzie, if I may, I believe my suggestion would be to reword just to add the phrase about supervisor approval. So it would read, employees must use accrued vacation or personal days as approved by their supervisor or something to that effect. It would not include vice president approval because that wouldn't be typical for use of vacation time, personal days.
And for number 2, that's the 2 things we're talking about. The actual approval for the consulting work is actually done at a different level. And it looks like it says appropriate president cabinet member. So kind of 2 different approval processes there within the policy.
Okay, thank you.
Does that clarify that?
I'm happy. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else, or we'll have Karen move on to the next one. Karen, if you go ahead and proceed to 3.02.05, if you're ready.
Sure.
Unless you had any other comment, I'm sorry.
No, I don't. Thank you. The second policy is 3.02.05 on employment of related policies. In terms of changes or updates to bring to your attention, I would offer that the primary one here is to specify that the direct or indirect supervision is not allowable under this policy. And we wrote the revisions to reflect that.
I saw that. I also saw one other slight modification, if I caught it properly, in the listing of what we were considering to be related parties. And I think in our old definition, we had one that would be more like we're good friends. And it looked like maybe that was removed. So it became more about a bloodline one way or the other. Did I see that correctly?
This is more consistent with the way that we define related parties and in other contexts.
Okay. I wasn't complaining about that. That was one thing I noticed, just for clarification, and maybe that's better, because if I happen to be friends with someone, that still doesn't mean I can't be objective and want them to come do good things here, hire them.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Trustee Wood.
Karen, I again sent you this in advance, so you'd have an idea what my concern was. The last portion of the policy, when it really talks about how we rectify the situation, So just for example, maybe one of our employees gets married and they have an adult stepson. They work here and now they have an adult stepson that works here. And I was really concerned about, I certainly understand transferring of duties, transferring of supervision, job description. I think that's great to try to address it. But I didn't like the language of the ability to terminate both parties. And so I sent that to you and suggested that maybe just one party if you have to do termination, but the whole idea that we would even have it in policy that we could terminate both just because they happen to get married. They may now have an adult stepson or something. So I just thought that that was too aggressive, and I'd like to see that change to one party.
Christy, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Along your thought process there, would we, and Karen, please jump in, and I don't want this to become unwieldy for you guys from the HR standpoint. If you did have that scenario, which could very well happen, under the auspices that, okay, we'd only terminate one, not both, would that be the type of thing where we'd go to the couple and say, okay, who wants to step away, and one can stay, one can go, and give them the option of that? Or I mean, in concert with still what's the needs of the college? I mean, in the military, it's always about the needs of the military. So, but if it can be accommodated, would that type of discussion, would we want to, I don't know if we have to codify that in here or just talk about it, but,
It's a great question for HR and Dr. Sabali.
because they may have a preference, One may make more than the other.
There you go. That's how you decide. Yeah, no.
Chair Banducci, Trustee Wood, I appreciate the concern, and I would first of all assure you that terminating either employee would be a last resort. If there were alternatives in terms of, reassigning them or the other options that are laid out here, we would certainly try to go that route, any of those routes, before we would propose termination. The situation that we're talking about are highly unusual, and I would say, we'd probably at that point have to deal with those on a case-by-case basis. Terminating one employee would be the more likely of the two scenarios. That terminating both employees is language that was in the that is in the existing policy. So we had just left it unchanged. That's not something new that we're proposing, and I wouldn't have a problem making a change to terminating one policy and striking that or both piece. That doesn't concern me.
The only scenario that I could see where this language could be helpful to you guys in a legal standpoint, where if you felt you had to terminate both parties, was if for some reason they just were completely uncooperative and forced the hand and neither wanted to be fired or stepped down, or it's a pretty extreme example.
That's correct, Chair Banducci. I would say it would be, again, highly unusual, and then would likely be covered by a different college policy relating to that situation.
Trustee Wood.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I had offered to send some language. The city has very similar policies. They deal with employees as well. Their language speaks to terminating one.
Trustee Howard.
As I look at this policy, it's got a lot of detail in it that, quite frankly, I wouldn't expect to see in just a policy. The first paragraph is what I might normally identify as our policy, maybe even the second for definition purposes, but most of that seems more like a procedure. And so I'm guessing there's no procedure under this policy. Is that correct?
Trustee Howard, that's correct. There hasn't been a procedure. We didn't propose one in this case. I don't necessarily disagree with you, but I think because it existed as a policy and there wasn't really a lot, I guess, to it. I think that's the primary reason we left it as it was, just as a standalone policy.
It's one page.
Just as a follow-up,
Go ahead.
I'm not objecting to that, quite frankly. I just want to make sure we were looking at everything we needed to look at as we examine this policy. So if there's no procedure, and this really is a combination of the two, that may be appropriate in this circumstance, but I just want to make sure we had everything in front of us. Thank you.
Again, a good question, because one of the things that none of us thought to ask of 3.02.12 is, it appears that one that was the previous one we just reviewed, that may not have a procedure with it either.
Oh, the one on professional consulting?
Yes, ma'am.
It does not.
Okay,
You're
so
correct.
all three of the policies that we're seeing tonight are standalone, and there are no procedures accompanying them. Okay. All right. Anything else from down here, gentlemen? Okay. Trustee Wood?
Nope.
Okay, so let's see where we're at, just real quick for clarity. Karen, tell us what you think you heard.
I think we're striking termination of both parties. We're going to move forward with the, let's see.
So it'd say something like terminating one party from employment.
If I can find it.
That very last
So-
paragraph, the
Right.
fourth sentence up.
I found it. So that the sentence would read, this may include transferring related parties to different positions, changing their job duties, and or terminating one party from employment.
And you think that sounds like you're okay with that? You don't think that's going to encumber you to do your job or to make the necessary personnel actions?
I'm comfortable with that change, yes.
Trustee Wood, that sound acceptable?
That's great. I'm curious, do we have to send it all back through Senate with these kind of changes? No? Okay.
That's pretty minor, but okay, good question. Okay, you said that, everybody's, we're thinking that. Okay.
Chair Banducci?
Trustee McKenzie.
I do think it would fall under like an operational decision that would basically is removing an option that's on the table for both parties, but would a compromise of saying reviewable by the board? So preferably, obviously, the board and everyone would prefer one person, and
If we needed to get, if there was a need that both parties needed to be terminated, I think Karen made it pretty clear that it would probably fall under some other policy. That we would come that way. Is that?
Yeah, I think,
okay, I'm satisfied.
no, okay, are you okay? I think Karen has the tools that she needs with this and the other policies.
I do. Thank you.
All right. There's no more comments or questions? Thank you, Karen.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is information items. It's a presidential search update. Trustee Howard.
Thank you. Chairman Banducci and I, along with our presidential search coordinator and consultant, have met in excess of 8 hours so far, attempting to create the proper structure for this presidential search committee. We went over and spent a good deal of time developing the qualifications and the position profile. And I think we've been able to agree on that, although I'm not sure. We've also attempted to create categories for representation on the presidential search committee. Those categories are things like representatives from the business community, from medicine, from faculty and staff, higher education, et cetera. There are a number of different categories. So first establishing the categories that should be represented, and we're still working on that. And then filling those categories with people who would represent the interests of those particular groups and bring an overall interest, quite frankly, to the betterment of NIC. Both creating the categories and creating the people and identifying the individuals to represent those categories has proceeded at, quite frankly, at a snail's pace. Given our history on this board, it's not surprising. I suspect there are a lot of 1-1 votes. And so when there's a 1-1 vote, nothing happens. We're still, we have different approaches to representation. Chairman Banducci would like very much to have a say in every representation from every group. I think if I'm not misrepresenting him, he can correct me, but I would like to see the constituency groups that are identifiable as a group, such as faculty and staff, foundation, that sort of thing, select their own representations and also try and get the community to tell us who they want to represent the various community representations. We have disagreements there that is slowing us down. Recently, there's been, within the last couple of days, there have been on the NIC now a representation of some forums to start to get some input from all the groups. I must confess that it is frustrating, probably for Trustee Banducci as much as myself, that we can't move this along faster and do it with more agreement. But it's been a difficult pull, and we do have a proposed search project calendar draft that's out that we're trying to meet so that we can get our invitations out for people to make application and see what the pool of applicants looks like. And we have to do that as quickly as possible. I think we've talked about before the fact that within academia, there is kind of a season for applications. It starts after the first of the year, but applicants for new positions like to, most of them are already in a position of responsibility at some other institution, and they want to finish out the academic year and make arrangements for the next academic year. And so we really need to try and get this whole process underway so that our selections are done by the close to the end of, at the very least, close to the end of the academic year. Anyway, we're struggling with that, and I'd be dishonest if I didn't say that we aren't struggling with it. And it's important that we move it along, and we're going to keep trying. We've got another meeting set up, 2 more meetings set up within the next couple of weeks, and so we'll see if we can't move along and get this Citizens Committee, Advisory Committee finished up. That's an important group, because once the applicants submit their applications, those are going to be reviewed by the Citizens Committee, who will ultimately be charged with sending on something like 3 to 5 names to the trustees for interviews. So all that takes time. And then there's also the time for the faculty and staff and community to interview applicants, the final applicants. And so we need to get to that point. And that's my report.
All right. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, are you going to also, or I have questions unless you were going to provide?
I would like to share just a couple of thoughts. It is a challenging process. There's been some mixed approaches here. In the one vein, we're trying to pre-slot some folks in. At the same vein, we're trying to strike a balance. So it's interesting to have say in who's going to compose these. And so there's been some question of why we've already pre-selected some, which maybe we have a category with only 2, and we've already pre-selected one, then okay, how do we come to agreement on the second person in there when there's already one there? And we're supposed to be trying to strike a balance. It's interesting sometimes how we look to strike that balance, even amongst the different categories, the different folks, as we're looking at all different people to have a variety of folks. It's, I had thought that we were going to put it out to the public, and we would have people come and volunteer, and we'd have a lot of the different categories. We'd say, okay, we'd like people from forestry to come talk to us, and people from manufacturing, give us your names. And as it's turned out, at one point we're trying to throw that wide net, but in the other, it's almost, okay, Angela's going to get some inputs from a couple folks, or maybe Ken and I bring our own lists. And then we're going to try to figure out who we can actually agree on. But it's somebody we haven't even talked to, and we don't even know if they're interested in being on the committee. So in my book, if someone hasn't already volunteered, it's sort of cart before the horse. So we're trying to wrestle through names, and we don't even know if that person's interested in being on the committee or if they're available. So this process has been a push-pull, and it's gone in some different ways, and not quite the ways I expected personally. And I think that sometimes we've been a little inverted in how we've done it. So it is to Trustee Howard's point. It has been a little frustrating. Again, right now, I think we've got a week where Angela's making phone calls from a few names we've identified, some of which were provided to Angela by a couple of sources. And yet we have no idea if those people are even going to be available or want to participate. And if the answer is no, then at the next meeting, we've got to try to come to an agreement. Ken and I do have another name that we can go out and solicit and see if they'd like to play. If I had 5 people that had already volunteered and I have my list from the community, then in theory, at least I'd know those 5 names were interested and available. I hope. So again, the process has been interesting, and it's something that we're working through and refining, and sometimes it goes forward, and sometimes it reverses and goes back around. But and again, there are some differing of opinions at times, and there are sometimes someone that Ken might support that I choose not to, and vice versa. It doesn't make either of us wrong. We just have a different opinion of who might best fit on the committee and serve the needs of the college. That's probably all I need to say. Trustee Wood.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, I do appreciate hearing from both of you the status of where we're at with our search. I'm not going to talk about who's right or wrong. It would be great if our co-chairs were on the same page, but sometimes we're just not. But what I really want us to focus on, though, when it comes to, I have 2 things. First, the constituency groups on campus, and then we'll talk about the community groups. The constituent groups on campus, I just want to come back to our accreditation standards, which there are 2 standards that address how we interact with our constituent groups, and I can provide those to the full board. And then there's also our own NIC policy. There's a couple of them, policy on policy, and then policy 2.0301 on committees, function, and structure. And then there's clear procedures in those policies. In those procedures, it's very clear that these members of these constituent groups are they're responsible for fulfilling their own committee's charge. That is their role. It's not our role. So I just want to make sure whatever you're all talking about and what decisions you come to, that we focus on policy and accreditation standards. As far as the community groups, past practices, and Mr. Chair, I know you were part of this because you were involved in the search, I believe, for Dr. Dunlap and then Dr. McLennan. What we did as a full board, not just the co-chairs, is the full board had a meeting where we discussed potential people that might like to, first we identified the different areas that we think would be important to serve in community committees, and then we identified some possible candidates, and then we set our consultant out to contact those people. We should be able to pull that together pretty quickly. I guess it would be nice if all of us, Trustee McKenzie and myself included, we can give you names, we can give you, as a board, we could say, here's some names of people that represent different areas of industry. And then we can set about asking, like 3 people per field of study, then we could set about asking. I just want to see us making some movement, getting these committees formed so that we can start to have them meet and really take an active role in this search process.
Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair.
Trustee Howard.
I guess I want to respond in part to what Trustee Wood just said. We don't have a difficult time coming up with names. We have a difficult time coming up with names that we agree on. So there's plenty of people that we have been suggested. And part of the process that you alluded to about the constituency groups, we have a disagreement with regard to whether those constituency groups ought to select their own or whether the trustee should. My personal feeling is that this citizens committee should be comprised of citizens who basically are not handpicked by the trustees. We are handpicking them. That's kind of the process that we're doing right now. But I would like to see the authorized or the organized constituency groups pick their own, such as faculty and staff, foundation, et cetera. And in that regard, I'm going to make a motion to authorize the established constituency groups, such as faculty and staff, to appoint their own representatives to the Presidential Search Committee. That's my motion.
I would second that because it comports with policy.
I have a motion and a second. Trustee Howard, do you have anything more to say on your motion?
No, I think I identified why I made the motion.
All right. I would say that right now, what we're doing is following the lead of the individual's been hired. We are working through it as prescribed. What you're proposing is not what's been prescribed. It's not the process that she's using and that we are engaged in. Are there any other comments or questions?
Mr. Chair.
Sure.
The motion that I've made and the process of allowing the constituency groups to select their own representatives is what we've done for this is my third presidential search committee, and every other one has been done in the way that the constituency groups selected their own representatives. That's why the motion. And quite frankly, our consultant, Angela, didn't suggest any process to us. She's been trying to find common ground to get this process moving along. So that's why the motion is to try and give some direction to this so that we're not sitting and saying in tie votes all the time what we should be doing.
Well, and just for the record, I inherited Joe Dunlap when I was elected in 2012, and my involvement in the selection of Rick McLennan was very limited. We had a couple other folks that were the liaisons to that process, and most of my activity in that came down to when we got into the room at the end with the box and the final people, and we went through that process. So I can't speak to some of what you're saying, and I haven't seen it, and I didn't participate in it. So,
Chair, if I may,
Trustee McKenzie.
I would just like to read a paragraph of the constituent reports that I'm sure all the other trustees read. And following, which I do appreciate the constituent reports putting in writing to make the meeting efficient, and we thought it was going to be quite long. And I'm also excited to go see some basketball games at night at the library. People on the way out should check that out too. But back to my following staff assembly meeting. This is from the staff assembly chair's report. Sarah Martin, thank you. Following staff assembly meeting, the staff assembly executive committee was tasked with reviewing the names of interested candidates who volunteered to serve on the search committee. Staff assembly executive committee reviewed the names, provided and did not have any information that would indicate any of the names listed would be disqualified or precluded from being considered to serve on the committee. We feel there is a good mix of representation of NIC within the names provided. And I really, if I can emphasize that last part, there's a good mix of representation of NIC within the names provided. So I think it's wise that we not approve this motion. Now we trust the two co-chairs of the committee to provide a good mix on the Citizens Committee. And I think you two can compose that. If people are voting on individual constituency reports, they, faculty will vote and staff will vote, and then you may get an unbalanced. So I trust in the two of you to do just fine, especially according to college policy. Yeah, so I'll call the question.
Well, Mr. Chair, I'd still like to have discussion.
We have the question called.
Well, that was really convenient.
Well, no. Why
I
did
mean,
we-
we're in discussion.
I think Robert's Rules order says we each get to talk twice.
Actually, it doesn't say that.
Greg, would you allow Trustee Wood for one more comment on this? My one comment would be that Angela calls it balance. What you're referring to. Trustee Wood. Wait a minute, are you okay with that? You did call the question.
Would appreciate being quick about it, sure.
Trustee Wood.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, it isn't about whether I have confidence in the two of you to pick reputable people. I would just encourage us, especially at this time, to pay attention to the accreditation standards that speak to our constituency groups on campus, and then the NIC policy with clear procedures about the constituent groups, and that they choose their own representatives. I don't want us going a direction just because, well, we think that's a feel-good way to go. I want us to stick to policy, even though they may be willing to make concessions for us. I kind of feel that maybe there's a little bit of pressure. They may be feeling pressure, and I just want us to stick to policy. That's the easiest, cleanest thing to do.
All right, call the question.
Question is called. We have a motion on the floor. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All those opposed, please say nay.
Nay.
Chair also votes nay.
Mr. Chair,
Trustee Howard.
yes, I'd like to make another motion, and that motion is to authorize the presidential search consultant to break any ties and votes with regard to staffing of the search committee so that we can move this along.
A second.
Chair. Trustee Howard, do you have any?
Yes, I mean,
Anything you'd like to say?
we've been through a number of meetings. Some of them have been not very productive. I mean, to pick up representation in one category took us 2 meetings of an hour. We could move along much more expeditiously. The search coordinator has done a good job of doing her homework. She checks with people on campus. She's already been involved in 2 searches on campus with regard to some other openings. So she's very knowledgeable and does her homework. And I think in order to authorize her to listen to the discussion that goes on and then break any tie votes so that we can move along with staffing and creating the search committee appropriately.
See no more comments or questions? We have a motion on the floor with a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All those opposed, please say nay.
Nay.
Chair also votes nay.
Mr. Chair, point of question, clarification. If I could ask the college attorney, Mr. Lyon, we've just had 2 tie votes, so which means no action can be taken either way, which what my understanding is we are not going to pick the constituency groups representatives, nor are they at this point in time. Can you clarify? There's really no action being taken.
Mr. Chairman, Trustee Wood, a 2-2 vote here with this board means that the motion failed. The 2 motions that were presented have failed. So it doesn't decide how things are going to be done in picking people. That still is a function of the committee to the search committee.
That was a nice backdoor way, folks, but it's not going to work. So Next item on the agenda,
What? I don't know what that meant.
that meant that Dr. Sabali is the next one to speak. It's discuss ACCT Governance Leadership Institute.
So I have mentioned that there is in Philadelphia, March 23rd through 25th, ACCT is doing a training on governance, and it is all geared around the board and the president and the CEO relationship. And I have interest in attending, and I know Trustee McKenzie does as well. And also as part of this, I know others, it's hard to get to Philadelphia. Opening up maybe a little bit of a discussion of interest of trying to find some training in April or May for us, and also seeing if there's any interest in inviting the other community colleges to maybe do training in partnership so that we can share ideas and grow together.
Any comments or questions? Trustee McKenzie.
Chair Banducci, I'm President Sabali. I'm very supportive of that multi-community college gathering point. The last time we did that in August, well, there wasn't trustee training so much as other planning. It was very beneficial. So I would love, that would be great.
At this time, for Dr. Sabali to know, oh, sorry, Trustee Howard.
I just wanted to comment on the fact that I've been to, I think, 2 of the governance leadership conferences. They are valuable, quite honestly. They provide information and examples, quite frankly, from other community colleges across the country who have had problems with different circumstances, and also how to engage in leadership in a positive way. So, you know, I would encourage attendance at that. I suspect I should go also, but I must confess, I've been to 2 of them and some other leadership conferences besides that. And my hesitation is only that I would hope there's something new there. But I am considering whether I go or not. With regard to the multi-community college leadership, we actually have done that in the past, but you need to have somebody to lead that conference. It's not just a matter of 3 or 4 community colleges getting together and sharing ideas. There needs to be some structure to it, and the structure is usually provided by some organization that does leadership training. And in the past, we've had ACCT send people in to do that. So if that's something that we can get the other community colleges to agree to, I would agree to that. The reason for the other community colleges is, quite frankly, it's sort of easy to stay on your own path when you don't see what other people are doing. And so you watch the pathways that other people have taken, and sometimes it helps you move off of a path that you're on and get in a more positive direction. So I would agree to that, but it needs to be organized, I think, in an appropriate way where we have the kind of leadership training that would be beneficial.
In the past,
We would reach out to ACCT.
yeah, well, ACCT, but I know at the past too, we've met in a couple different venues, and we've been down in Boise, and then I think even ICRIMP at one time has organized once or twice. We've had meetings there. I'm trying to remember, Christie or Ken, you might help me remember that.
Yeah, ICRIM's good too.
Because we had one that was, I wish I could remember the gentleman's name that spoke to us, but it was kind of a risk
Management.
presentation.
Yeah,
And I thought that was extremely informative.
yeah.
But
So,
Chair,
yes.
those were beneficial to Rocker, but that's not leadership. That's not,
That's true.
right. I mean, they were talking a lot about risk management and, you know, how you handle your emails and other things that we should know about. We're talking here about leadership, which I think is an important ingredient that's different.
Well, and for that, we did have ACCT. That was Ken and Mary, I believe it was. We did that one in June, I believe. So maybe we could have somebody like them or them and invite the other colleges to participate in that too. If we did something like that.
I will,
Dr. Smalley.
I'll begin working. I'll reach out to the other community college presidents to see if there's interest on their board. We will reach out to Marion Kennedy, CCT, since we have some familiarity with them, and see if they're willing to put that on. And if anybody else is interested in that training in March, please let Shannon know as soon as possible so we can start making arrangements, as March 23rd is coming very quickly.
Just one other comment. One of the things that caused me to hesitate on the Philadelphia is it's scheduled at the same time as our next board
meeting.
And our next board meeting may well be the board meeting in which we interview applicants for the Zone 5. And I don't want to do that by Zoom. And so that was one of my hesitations in terms of agreeing to do the Philadelphia trip.
As we look at the training, Dr. Sabali, and I know this might be a little later on the calendar, but are not the other presidents scheduled to come up here at some point here this spring or early summer?
I'll look at my calendar, but there is a meeting of the 4 community college presidents up here in July 21st and 22nd, as it is right now, the Idaho Community College's President's Retreat. So if we wanted to, we could try to, I could ask them if they wanted to incorporate their boards in that. That is a
I'm just
possibility.
thinking, maybe, certainly it's a question to ask.
There is some already things on that agenda that are for the presidents as well. So,
And one of
but we
these
could extend it a
breakdowns-
day. Yep.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, it's a possibility.
You know, you guys could have your thing and trustees could have their thing. There could be some that was joint, possibly. Okay. Any other comments or questions for Dr. Sabali on this topic?
If, just with regards to the ICRIP training,
Trustee McKenzie.
I don't know the last time that's been happened, but maybe just my thoughts to reach out to ICRIP and see if that possibility could happen within a year or something.
We'll do.
All right, next agenda on item, next item on the agenda, excuse me, is the board chair report. I will make mine pretty short. Not this weekend, but the following weekend, our wrestling team will be at the national tournament. We've qualified all 10 weights, all 10 wrestlers. We come from a really tough region. Clackamas is the defending champ, and I believe they're ranked #1. So we took second place to them, I believe, in the regional. I believe that's correct. But either way, we have some tough wrestling here in this region. So I think it's prepared us well for nationals, and our kids have done well against the top level competition. We've wrestled several of the top ranked teams. So everybody would encourage them as you see them on campus, and pray for their safety and travel and for health. And I suspect there'll be some way to follow them through one of our websites or something. So I would encourage people to support them from afar and encourage them. We got a couple of basketball games tonight. I believe the ladies are probably about getting done. The men will start here at 7:30. So I would encourage anybody here to walk next door and support our Corey Simmons and the men's basketball team. I will head there myself. And I believe this is our last home game. It's the Community College of Spokane tonight. So there should be a few folks there. It should be a spirited game. And continue to watch both the ladies and men's teams for their postseason activities and support them. I think that's all I need to say. Anything from anyone for remarks of the good of the order? All right. May I have a motion to adjourn, please?
So moved.
Second motion. Seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Thank you. Meeting is adjourned. Be safe, everybody.